From history-making investments to off-camera deals, here are Mr. Wonderful's top 5 investments on Shark Tank. Bottle Breacher, $150,000 for 20% equity. What could be more manly than customizable bottle openers made up of decommissioned .50 caliber ammunition shells? That's why Eli and Jane Crane entered the tank with a bold claim. They'd come up with the ultimate gift for men. The gifting industry, according to the couple, has limited options when it comes to male-centric presents. That's why friends, groomsmen, and male relatives often get the same tired presents each and every time. Well, it's about time someone did something to change that. Eli, a former Navy SEAL, came prepared. He offered Mark Cuban gluten-free beer to test out the product and made Lori the first pink bottle breacher in existence. The Sharks were immediately impressed. Great pitch and great product, but they were iffy about the ask. The Cranes wanted $150,000 in exchange for 10% of the company. After testing the product, hearing their backstory, and the fact that they'd sold almost 150 a day on their way to close to $1 million in sales, Lori was the first to bow out. She claimed that she just didn't know enough about the area to invest. That left the boys. But Kevin was the shark they'd been after from the get-go. Eli even told the Sharks that much of what he learned about business came from listening to Kevin rip apart entrepreneurs on the show. Lucky for them, Kevin was the first one to bite, but he wanted more of Bottle Breacher. He wanted 20% for $150,000. Damon was willing to pay $200,000 for 25%, but contingent to getting the license. Robert cleared the field, and Mark offered to go half with Kevin for $75,000 for 10% each. Deal. Shortly after the episode aired, Bottle Breacher's website crashed. A 2025 profile lists Bottle Breacher's revenue at approximately $1 million per year. A net worth update from April 2025 estimates the company at $1.11 million, based on modest 10% yearly growth. Plated, $500,000 for 5.6% equity. Plated didn't get a deal from Kevin Oleary on Shark Tank. Then why are we talking about it here? A bit of backstory's necessary here. Nick Taranto and John Hicks entered the tank seeking a whopping $500,000 in exchange for 4% of their company, Plated. The co-founders had met at Harvard Business School and reunited because they shared the same problem. They couldn't find good, healthy meal prep options anywhere. Plated would deliver fresh produce to your doorstep with recipe cards and videos to help you prep your next delicious and healthy meal. Minimum order was 4, so you'd be set for the week. Here's the thing though, the Sharks weren't all that impressed. While Plated had done swell in only 7 months, they had a hard time wrapping their heads around the business model. Lori asked what was stopping her from just buying the groceries herself and making her meals on her own time. Why necessary contact Plated and wait a whole day? But the guys had an answer for everything. They came prepared, and Mark was impressed with how they managed to explain every question effortlessly. Robert was the first one to bow out. Next came Kevin, who also stated that he could do it on his own if he wanted to. Lori and Barbara didn't stick around either. Mark actually offered them something, $500,000 for 5.5%. With Mark's deal being the only one on the table, Plated agreed. The deal with Mark, though, never pulled through. But that doesn't mean that Plated never got an offer. Kevin Oleary actually joined in after the episode aired. They actually talked about in Beyond the Tan. Plated was acquired by Albertsons in September 2017 for close to $300 million. It rolled out retail meal kits but ceased its direct-to-consumer subscription in November 2019. Today, the brand exists only as a private label in select Albertsons and Safeway stores. Breathometer, $650,000 for 30% equity. Charles Michael Yim had tears in his eyes by the end of the episode. Season 5 of Shark Tank aired one of its most successful products yet. Yim wasted no time when he asked the tank for $250,000 in exchange for 10% of his company. Breathometer is a silicone breath analyzer that connects to your smartphone and estimates your breath alcohol level via an application. Kevin had a perfect question. Was Yim ready to take on the liability? Wasn't he afraid that someone might sue him later on if they actually get arrested? Yim claimed that he'd covered all bases, including expanding to detect bad breath, diabetes breath, and so on. Breathometer would be the next big thing, and the Sharks seemed to agree. Mark made an offer almost immediately for $500,000 for 20% of the company, but he knew that other Sharks would be interested too. Lori offered to go in with Mark, and he said no. Kevin wanted in too, and offered $250,000 for 15%. A sweeter offer, but with less money. Charles offered to work with everyone, claiming that was the plan from the get-go. Mark wasn't into the idea, but Robert offered to go with Kevin and Lori. Mark wanted to stand alone in the whole thing. Wait, we're forgetting about Damon. He wanted to stand by himself too, and offered Yim exactly what he wanted. Things were getting intense, but Kevin was very interested in getting everyone on board, going as far as letting Mark have more equity in Breathometer and telling Damon they'd make Shark Tank history. Yim would make history as the first founder to raise $1 million on Shark Tank. And history was made that day. It's not a happy ending though. Breathometer as a company is no longer in operation. The Federal Trade Commission found the product's blood alcohol readings seriously inaccurate in 2017, forcing the device to be withdrawn and customers refunded, totaling about $5.1 million in sales. PSYONIC, $1 million for 6% equity. It was 2 against 1 for a deal with PSYONIC. Dr. Adil Akhtar offered the world's first bionic prosthetic that was rechargeable, water-resistant, and had the ability to actually help you feel things with a prosthetic again. He was inspired by a visit to Pakistan where he saw a poverty-stricken family using a twig for a prosthetic. Adding to the pitch, Akhtar introduced a wounded veteran who'd used PSYONIC and stated that he could finally feel his daughter's hand when he held it with the bionic arm. Akhtar also revealed that he gave up medical school to take PSYONIC to new heights. Mark couldn't understand why Akhtar couldn't crowdfund more considering how impressive the device was. Akhtar claimed that the business had limited production and actually made its sales mostly through social media. While the sharks had issues, Akhtar managed to give answers to everything. But Mark wasn't impressed and was out immediately. Robert wished Akhtar well, but said that he couldn't get behind the science of it all. While Kevin was making his pitch, $1 million for 2% over 10% that PSYONIC was offering, Lori and Damon were coming up with their own, $1 million for 6% split between them. Kevin really wanted the deal and was willing to go down to 5%, but would go in with the other sharks for 6%. Akhtar took the offer. Ability Hand remains the only touch-sensing bionic hand commercially available, recognized for its lightning-fast as 0.2 seconds response, 32 grip modes, water resistance, USB-C charging, and insurance coverage. Nearly 220 clinical patients are actively using it, per Loyola University follow-up. Boost Oxygen, $1 million for 6.25% equity. A quick boost of a life essential. Rob Nooner and Mike Grice pitched Boost Oxygen, a 95% pure recreational canned oxygen product available in flavored varieties like peppermint, eucalyptus, and rosemary. The importance of oxygen cannot be overstated, and while oxygen canisters exist, Boost Oxygen was willing to up the game. Barbara said she was out in the second minute after the founders said they wanted $1 million. Mark was the only one who was actually familiar with the space because of the Mavs. He claimed that the product was actually useful for athletes, which was where the founders wanted to expand. Guest shark Rohan Oza claimed that the product was more of an impulse buy than something people would actually want, claiming that without having repeat customers, Boost Oxygen was a failure. Barbara already made her case, but claimed she'd rather use the $1 million to buy a beach house. Mark, yes, he was familiar with the space, but didn't really feel like it was right to invest. Lori was out too. Mr. Wonderful was the only one who wanted a bite. A pretty big bite. He would give Boost Oxygen what they wanted as a loan for 9% interest and receive 7.5% equity on top of it. In his defense, he did ask the co-founders to take a big breath before he told them his offer. After a little back and forth, Kevin agreed to 7.5% interest and 6% equity share. And Boost Oxygen got a deal. Boost Oxygen is thriving in 2025. It's one of America's fastest-growing companies, with 3-year median revenue of $11.1 million and an impressive $84 million earnings in 2024. Its market reach persists across 8,000-plus retail locations and 15 million cumulative sales since Shark Tank. Which one of Kevin's investments have you bought? Let us know in the comments. Be sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe for more.